Let me tell you something that's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. Your emotions are making you weak. Not having emotions, but letting them control you, reacting instead of responding, being a slave to whatever you feel in the moment. That's what's destroying your life. I see it everywhere. Men who can't control their anger, so they blow up and ruin opportunities. Men who can't control their fears, so they never take risks. Men who can't control their sadness, so they wallow in it like it's an identity. Men who can't control their excitement, so they celebrate before they win. These men are predictable, manipulatable, weak. And here's the brutal truth. The world knows it, your enemies know it, your competition knows it. They're using your emotional weakness against you every single day and you don't even realize it. The man who controls his emotions controls his destiny. The man who doesn't is a slave. I used to be that slave, and I'm going to tell you exactly how I broke free. Because what I'm about to share with you isn't some therapy session garbage about getting in touch with your feelings. This is about mastering your emotions like a weapon, understanding them, using them, but never ever letting them use you. If you're ready to stop being controlled and start being in control, stay with me. This is going to change everything. I need to take you back to a version of myself I'm not proud of. Young Andrew Tate was emotional, reactive, controlled by whatever he felt in the moment. Someone disrespected me, I'd explode. Didn't matter where we were, didn't matter who was watching, I'd let anger take the wheel and I'd react like an animal. Someone challenged me, fear would creep in. Not obvious fear, but that subtle anxiety that makes you defensive, that makes you prove yourself when you should just execute. Something didn't go my way, I'd sink into frustration sometimes for days. Let it affect everything else I was doing. Let it poison my mindset. I thought this was strength. I thought reacting showed people I wasn't weak. I thought wearing my emotions on my sleeve meant I was real or authentic. I was wrong. Let me tell you about a specific moment that changed everything. I was in a business meeting, important meeting, life-changing money on the table. And the guy across from me said something that triggered me. It wasn't even that bad, just a subtle disrespect. A comment designed to test me, and I failed the test. I let anger control me. I reacted. I got emotional. I showed him he could get under my skin. And I watched the deal disappear right there in real time. Not because I wasn't qualified, not because the opportunity wasn't real, but because I couldn't control my emotions for 5 minutes. I left that meeting and I wanted to break something. I was furious at him, at the situation, at myself, but mostly at myself because I realized something in that moment that I'd been avoiding. I was a slave to my own feelings, and that slavery was costing me everything. My emotions had cost me money. They'd cost me respect. They'd cost me opportunities. They'd damaged relationships. They'd created enemies I didn't need. Every time I let emotion control me, I handed my power to someone else. I gave them the keys to my behavior. I became predictable, manipulatable, weak, and weak men don't win. They don't build empires. They don't command respect. They don't create freedom. They just react to life instead of control. That day, sitting in my car after that failed meeting, I made a decision that would change everything. I decided to study my emotions like they were an enemy I needed to defeat. Not suppress them, not ignore them, but understand them, master them, turn them into tools instead of letting them be weapons used against me. But before I tell you how I did that, you need to understand the lie you've been fed your entire life. Modern society tells you that expressing your emotions makes you strong, that being in touch with your feelings is healthy, that suppressing emotions is toxic masculinity. This is propaganda designed to keep you weak. Let me be clear. I'm not saying you shouldn't feel emotions. You're human. You feel things. Anger, fear, joy, sadness, excitement. These are all part of the human experience. But there's a massive difference between feeling an emotion and being controlled by it. Feeling anger and choosing not to react, that's strength. Being controlled by anger and reacting impulsively, that's weakness. Society has confused these two things on purpose because emotional men are controllable men. Think about it. Who's easier to manipulate? The man who stays calm under pressure or the man who reacts emotionally to every trigger? The emotional man is predictable. You know exactly how to get a response from him. You just push his buttons and watch him dance like a puppet. Your enemies want you emotional. Your competition wants you emotional. The system wants you emotional. Because emotional men make terrible decisions. They act impulsively. They burn bridges. They sabotage themselves. They're so busy feeling that they can't think strategically. And while they're reacting, the men who control their emotions are winning. In business, in relationships, in combat, in life, the man with emotional control has the advantage, always. I see this everywhere now. Men who get triggered by social media comments. Men who can't have a disagreement without raising their voice. Men who let rejection destroy their confidence. Men who let success make them arrogant. These men are giving their power away. They're letting external circumstances control their internal state. They're slaves who don't even realize they're in chains. And the worst part, they think this makes them authentic. They think this makes them human. They think suppressing these reactions would make them fake or robotic. No, controlling your emotions doesn't make you fake. It makes you formidable. You know what's fake? Pretending that your emotional reactions are serving you when they're actually destroying you. Pretending that being controlled by your feelings is somehow more real than choosing your responses consciously. The truth is this: emotional control is the foundation of everything else. You can't build wealth if you make emotional financial decisions. You can't build a strong body if you train based on how you feel. You can't build a successful business if you react emotionally to every setback. You can't build healthy relationships if you're controlled by insecurity and jealousy. Emotional men don't build empires. They build excuses. And I was tired of being that man. Let me break down exactly how emotions destroy men. Because until you see the cost, you won't be motivated to change. This is the big one. The emotion that makes you feel powerful while actually making you weak. I've watched men destroy their entire careers in a moment of anger. Say something they can't take back. Hit someone they shouldn't have. Make a decision that ruins everything they built. Anger makes you predictable. Your enemies know that if they trigger you, you'll react. And in that reaction, you'll make mistakes. You'll expose weaknesses. You'll lose the strategic advantage. I've lost deals because of anger. I've burned bridges because of anger. I've created enemies because of anger. And every single time I regretted it later. Because in that moment of anger, I wasn't thinking clearly. I was just reacting. And reactions are rarely optimal. This one's more subtle, but just as destructive. Fear stops you from taking the risks that would change your life. It keeps you in your comfort zone. It makes you rationalize inaction as wisdom. I've watched opportunities pass by men because they were too afraid to take them. Not physical fear, but fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of the unknown. And fear disguises itself. It pretends to be logic. It gives you rational sounding reasons why you shouldn't do the thing, but underneath all those reasons is just fear controlling you. I almost didn't start my first business because of fear. Almost didn't step into the ring because of fear. Almost didn't make the moves that built my empire because of fear. Thank God I learned to recognize it and override it, because everything I have came from doing things that scared me. This is the emotion that becomes an identity. Men who let sadness control them turn temporary pain into permanent victimhood. They wallow in it. They build their entire personality around being hurt or damaged or traumatized. And society encourages this. It's okay to not be okay. Take all the time you need. Your feelings are valid. Your feelings might be valid, but that doesn't mean you should be controlled by them. I've been sad. I've experienced loss. I've had things not work out. But I refuse to let that sadness define me. I refuse to carry it like a badge of honor. Sadness is a temporary state, not a permanent identity. Feel it, process it, and move forward. Don't set up camp there. This one surprises people. How can excitement be destructive? Because excitement makes you celebrate too early. It makes you talk about your plans before you execute them. It makes you feel like you've already won when you're still in the middle of the battle. I've watched men get excited about an opportunity and then sabotage it by acting like it's already done. They relax, they celebrate, they lose the hunger that got them there. Excitement is dangerous because it's pleasurable. You don't see it as a problem, but it's just as controlling as anger or fear. Every single one of these emotions has cost me money, relationships, opportunities, respect, time. And every time it was because I let the emotion control my actions instead of controlling the emotion first and then choosing my action. Your emotions are expensive. Every time you react instead of respond, you're paying a tax. A tax on your potential, a tax on your success, a tax on your freedom. And most men are paying this tax their entire lives without even realizing it. The moment everything changed for me happened in the aftermath of that business meeting I told you about. I was sitting in my car furious at myself. And I did something I'd never done before. I stopped and actually observed what I was feeling. Not judged it, not suppressed it, just observed it. I could feel the anger in my body, the tension in my jaw, the tightness in my chest, the heat in my face, the racing thoughts justifying my reaction. And I realized something profound. The anger was happening to me, not by me. It was like weather passing through my body. I didn't choose to feel it. It just appeared, a chemical reaction to a trigger. But here's what I did choose. I chose to act on it. I chose to let it control my behavior. I chose to give it the power to destroy that opportunity. The feeling was automatic. The action was a choice. And that distinction changed everything. Because if the action was a choice, that meant I could choose differently. I could feel the anger and not act on it. I could experience the emotion without letting it dictate my behavior. This was the beginning of my emotional control journey. I realized that emotions are like waves. They build, they peak, they crash, they recede. They don't last forever. They don't stay at peak intensity. They always pass. But most people don't know this. So when an emotion hits them, they think it's permanent. They think they need to act on it immediately. They think the feeling will never go away unless they do something about it right now. Wrong. If you just observe the emotion without acting on it, it will pass on its own. Every single time. This is what meditation teaches, but nobody explains it practically. They make it sound mystical. It's not. It's just basic observation of your own internal experience. So I started training myself to create space between the trigger and the response. Something would happen. I'd feel something. And instead of immediately reacting, I'd pause. Just for a moment. Sometimes just for a breath. In that pause, I'd observe. What am I feeling? Where am I feeling it in my body? What's the story my mind is telling me about this feeling? And then I'd ask, what would a smart man do right now? Not a reactive man, not an emotional man, a smart, strategic, in control man. And then I'd do that instead. This sounds simple. It's not easy because your emotions want immediate action. They're designed to motivate behavior. That's their evolutionary purpose. Feel fear, run away, feel anger, fight back. Feel sadness, retreat and recover. These were useful responses when we were dealing with physical threats in nature. They're less useful when you're trying to build a business, maintain relationships, or navigate modern life. So I had to retrain my nervous system. I had to teach my body that emotions don't require immediate action, that I could feel something intensely and still choose my response consciously. And that training required exposure. You can't control your emotions by thinking about controlling your emotions. You have to practice under pressure. This is why I believe combat sports forge better men than therapy ever could. In the boxing ring, you learn emotional control in real time. Someone's trying to hurt you. Your body is screaming at you to react emotionally, to panic, to rage, to quit. But if you do, you lose. You have to stay calm while someone's hitting you. You have to think strategically while your body is in pain. You have to control your breathing, your thoughts, your actions while chaos is happening around you. This is the ultimate emotional control laboratory. I can't tell you how many times I wanted to quit in the middle of a fight. How many times I felt the fear telling me to give up. How many times I felt the anger wanting me to swing wildly instead of fighting smart. But I learned to observe those feelings and then ignore them, to feel them fully and then choose my response based on strategy, not emotion. That translated to everything else in my life. Business negotiations became easier because I'd faced real physical danger and controlled my emotions through it. What's a difficult conversation compared to someone trying to knock you out? Financial pressure became manageable because I'd learned to think clearly under physical duress. If I can make strategic decisions while exhausted and hurt, I can definitely make them when I'm just stressed about money. But combat isn't the only training ground. Any form of deliberate discomfort works. Cold exposure taught me that discomfort is temporary and controllable. Standing in ice cold water while my body screams at me to get out, but choosing to stay, that's emotional control training. Exhaustion training taught me that my emotions lie to me. My body tells me I can't do one more rep, but if I push through, I can do 10 more. My feelings aren't facts, they're just data points. Pain tolerance training taught me that I can function through discomfort. That pain doesn't have to stop me. That I can feel something intensely and still execute. All of this was about reconditioning my nervous system, teaching my body that emotions are information, not instructions. Here's what most people don't understand. Your emotions evolve to keep you safe in a dangerous physical world. But we don't live in that world anymore. The same mechanism that would make your ancestors run from a tiger now makes you avoid a difficult conversation. The same mechanism that would make them fight to defend their tribe now makes you punch a wall when you're angry. The hardware is the same, but the software needs an update. So I updated mine through deliberate exposure to controlled stress. Every time I felt fear and pushed through it, I weakened fear's control over me. Every time I felt anger and chose not to react, I weakened anger's control over me. Every time I felt like quitting and didn't, I weakened that impulse's control over me. I was building new neural pathways, training my brain that emotions don't require immediate action, that I'm in control, not them. And the more I practiced, the better I got. I started noticing the emotions earlier. Sometimes before they fully formed. I'd feel the beginning of anger and I'd recognize it. Oh, that's just anger trying to control me. Not today. I'd feel anxiety creeping in and I'd label it, that's just fear. It's not real danger, just a feeling. I'd feel excitement wanting me to celebrate prematurely, and I'd check it. Not yet, finish first, celebrate later. This is emotional mastery. Not the absence of emotion, but the conscious choice of response despite the emotion. And let me be clear, this doesn't make you a robot. It makes you more human. because now you're acting from consciousness, not just from chemical reactions. Animals are controlled by their emotions. That's all they have. Humans have the capacity to observe our emotions and choose our actions. But most humans don't use that capacity. They live like animals, reacting to every stimulus. The difference between a boy and a man isn't age, it's emotional control. A boy is controlled by his feelings. A man feels everything but is controlled by nothing. Now let me break down the philosophy behind all of this. Because without understanding why emotional control matters, you won't have the conviction to develop it. First principle, emotions versus logic. You need to understand the hierarchy. Emotions are fast, they're automatic, they're designed to make you act quickly in response to threats or opportunities. Logic is slow, it's deliberate, it's designed to help you make optimal decisions when you have time to think. In modern life, most situations don't require fast emotional responses. They require thoughtful, logical decisions. But your brain defaults to emotion because that's the older, more primitive system. It's been around longer, it's more practiced, it's the default setting. You have to consciously override it every single time until logical thinking becomes your default. This is what I call the observer mindset. You step back from your emotions and observe them like a scientist. You don't identify with them, you don't become them, you just watch them like they're interesting phenomena happening in your body. Look at that. I'm feeling angry right now. Interesting. Where is that coming from? What triggered it? What story is my mind telling me that's creating this anger? When you observe emotions instead of becoming them, you create space. And in that space, you have choice. Most people are their emotions. I'm so angry. I'm really sad. I'm excited. No, you're not those things. You're experiencing those things. There's a difference. You are the consciousness that's aware of the emotions. The emotions are just temporary states passing through that consciousness. This isn't just philosophy. This is practical power. Because when you identify with an emotion, you feel compelled to act on it. If I am angry, then of course I need to express that anger. It's who I am in this moment. But if I'm just observing anger passing through me, I can choose how to respond to it. The anger doesn't define me or control me. Now, here's where people get confused. They think emotional control means suppression. Suppression is when you feel something and you push it down. You deny it, you pretend it's not there, you force it into the basement of your psyche. That doesn't work. Suppressed emotions don't disappear. They just go underground and then explode later or leak out in unhealthy ways. Emotional control is different. It's acknowledging the emotion, feeling it fully, and then choosing your response consciously. Feel the anger, don't act on the anger, let it pass, then decide what intelligent action to take. This is emotional intelligence, not being in touch with your feelings in some soft way, but understanding your emotions well enough to use them strategically instead of being used by them. Here's how I think about it. Emotions are servants, not masters. Fear is a useful servant. It alerts me to real danger, but I'm the master who decides whether that danger requires action. Anger is a useful servant. It alerts me that my boundaries have been violated, but I'm the master who decides how to address that violation strategically. Sadness is a useful servant. It alerts me that I've lost something valuable, but I'm the master who decides how long to grieve and when to move forward. Your emotions provide information. You make decisions. This is the proper hierarchy. And when you get it right, everything changes. You're no longer reactive. You're responsive. You're no longer controlled. You're in control. You're no longer predictable. You're dangerous. Because no one knows how you'll respond. They can trigger the emotion, but they can't control your action. You've broken the puppet strings. This is what separates winners from losers in every area of life. The winner feels fear before the negotiation, but walks in confident anyway. The loser lets the fear stop him from even showing up. The winner feels frustration after a setback, but analyzes what went wrong and adjusts. The loser lets the frustration turn into giving up. The winner feels insecure in a relationship, but doesn't let it turn into controlling behavior. The loser lets the insecurity destroy what he has. Same emotions, different responses, different outcomes. Your emotions don't determine your results. Your response to your emotions determines your results. And that response is always, always a choice. All right, enough philosophy. Let's get practical. Here's the system I use every single day to maintain emotional control. This isn't theory. This is what actually works. The pause technique. The moment you feel a strong emotion, pause. Just for one breath, one conscious breath. In that breath, you're creating space between the trigger and your response. You're interrupting the automatic reaction pattern. This sounds stupidly simple. It's incredibly powerful. Most emotional reactions happen in less than a second. Trigger, emotion, action. It's automatic. You don't even think about it. But if you insert a pause, you interrupt that pattern, and in that interruption, you have choice. One breath. That's all it takes to shift from reaction to response. The reframe protocol. This is about changing the story you're telling yourself about the situation. Your emotions aren't actually caused by events. They're caused by your interpretation of events. Someone cuts you off in traffic. That's the event. Neutral, no emotional content. But then your mind tells you a story. He disrespected me. He thinks he's better than me. He's deliberately trying to make me angry. That story creates the anger, not the event itself. So here's the reframe. He probably didn't even see me, or maybe he's rushing to an emergency, or maybe he's just a bad driver. Either way, it has nothing to do with me and it's not worth my energy. Different story, different emotion, different response. You can reframe any situation. Always. Lost a business deal? Story 1, I'm a failure, I'm not good enough. Emotion, sadness, shame, response, give up. Story 2, that wasn't the right opportunity, I learned what not to do. The right opportunity is coming. Emotion, determination, response, keep executing. Same event, different frame, different emotional experience, different outcome. The energy redirect. Emotions are energy. They have to go somewhere. If you suppress them, they stay stuck in your body. If you express them reactively, they damage your life. So redirect them, feel anger, channel it into your workout, hit the bag, lift heavy weights, let that energy fuel your training instead of your mouth. Feel fear, channel it into preparation. Let that nervous energy drive you to study harder, practice more, become more prepared. Feel frustration, channel it into problem solving. Let that irritation push you to find a better solution instead of complaining. Emotions are neutral energy. You decide where that energy goes. The reality check, when you're feeling something intensely, ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? Most of the time, the answer is no. And that perspective immediately drains the emotion of its power. You're angry about a comment someone made in 5 years. Will you even remember this? No. So why give it energy now? You're anxious about a presentation. In 5 years, will this presentation determine your success? No. So keep it in perspective. This isn't about minimizing important things. It's about recognizing that most things aren't as important as they feel in the moment. The consequence analysis. Before you act on an emotion, play the movie forward. If I react to this anger, what happens? I say something I can't take back. I damage a relationship. I lose an opportunity. I prove to others that I'm not in control. Is that worth it? Usually no. If I give in to this fear, what happens? I don't take the risk. I stay comfortable. I stay stuck. I regret not trying. Is that worth it? No. Playing the movie forward activates your logical brain. It helps you see beyond the immediate emotional impulse to the actual consequences of acting on it. The physical release. Sometimes you need to physically discharge emotional energy. That's fine. Just do it constructively. Feel like you need to yell? Go somewhere private and yell. Get it out. Then compose yourself and address the situation calmly. Feel like you need to cry? Cry. Let it out. Emotions need to move through you, but don't make permanent decisions while you're in that state. Feel like you need to hit something? Hit the heavy bag. Do push-ups until you collapse. Sprint until you can't breathe. Let the energy move through your body. Then engage your brain. This is the complete system. Use all of it or use parts of it, but use something, because emotional control isn't optional. If you want to build anything real, it's the foundation everything else is built on. Let me tell you what changes when you master this. First, your decisions improve dramatically. When you're not making emotional decisions, you're making strategic decisions. You're thinking 3 moves ahead instead of reacting to the current moment. This has made me millions of dollars. Not exaggerating, millions. Because I didn't sell businesses when I was excited. I didn't make investments when I was afraid. I didn't burn partnerships when I was angry. I waited until I was calm, analyzed the situation logically, and then made the move that actually served my interests. Every major success in my life came from a decision I made from a place of emotional control. Every major failure came from a decision I made while emotionally compromised. That pattern is so clear when I look back, and it's the same pattern I see in everyone else's life too. Second, people respect you. A man who doesn't react is a man you can't manipulate, and people respect what they can't control. When you stay calm while everyone else is panicking, you become the leader. When you stay focused while everyone else is reacting, you become the authority. When you stay composed while everyone else is emotional, you become the one people turn to. Emotional control commands respect automatically. You don't have to demand it, it's just given to you. I've walked into rooms full of emotional men and immediately become the most powerful person there. Not because I was the loudest, because I was the calmest. Third, your relationships improve. This one surprised me. I thought emotional control would make me cold or distant. It didn't. It made me more capable of real connection. Because when you're not controlled by insecurity, you don't need constant validation. When you're not controlled by jealousy, you don't need to control your partner. When you're not controlled by fear, you don't sabotage good things. The best relationships I've had happened after I developed emotional control, because I could be present without being needy. I could be strong without being reactive. I could handle conflict without being dramatic. Women respect emotional control. They're attracted to it, not the fake stoic act, real genuine emotional strength. A man who stays calm in chaos is a man who can protect her in crisis. A man who doesn't react to provocation is a man who won't embarrass her in public. A man who controls his emotions is a man who can lead. This is what masculine energy actually is. Not aggression, control. Fourth, you become unshakable in high pressure situations. Business deal going sideways? Calm. Someone trying to trigger you? Compose. Crisis happening? Focus. This is when emotional control pays off most. When everything's on fire and everyone's panicking, you're the one thinking clearly. I've negotiated multi-million-dollar deals while the other party was trying every emotional trick in the book to throw me off. It didn't work because I recognized what they were doing and didn't take the bait. I've handled public attacks, legal battles, and personal crises without falling apart. Not because I don't feel things, but because I don't let what I feel control what I do. You gain a massive strategic advantage. When people think they can push your buttons, they try, and while they're trying, they reveal their strategy, their desperation, their weaknesses. But because you're not actually controlled by those buttons, you see everything clearly. You watch them waste energy trying to manipulate you while you're calmly planning your next move. This is the ultimate power position. They think they're getting to you, they're not. You're getting valuable information about them. I've won business competitions because my competitors were emotional and I wasn't. They made mistakes born from fear, greed, or ego. I made calculated moves born from logic and strategy. Same intelligence, same resources, different emotional control, different outcomes. And finally, you become genuinely confident. Not fake confidence, not arrogant confidence, real confidence that comes from knowing you can handle whatever happens. Because you've proven to yourself that you can feel intense emotions and still function. You can be afraid and still execute. You can be angry and still make smart decisions. You can be sad and still move forward. That's unshakable confidence. It's not based on external validation or circumstances. It's based on internal proof that you're in control. When you know you can control yourself, you stop worrying about what you can't control. You stop needing things to go perfectly because you know you'll handle it either way. This is freedom, real freedom. Most men are prisoners to their emotions their entire lives. They think they're free because they express themselves, but they're just slaves with a longer leash. True freedom is being able to feel everything and be controlled by nothing. That's what emotional mastery gave me, and it's what it will give you. So here we are, 45 minutes of truth about emotional control. I've shown you why it matters. I've shown you how emotions destroy men. I've given you the philosophy. I've given you the practical system. Now comes the only question that matters. What are you going to do with this information? Because here's the reality most people won't accept. Most men will never master their emotions. They'll spend their entire lives being controlled by whatever they feel in the moment. They'll make terrible decisions when they're angry. They'll miss opportunities when they're afraid. They'll sabotage success when they're excited. They'll wallow in failure when they're sad. And they'll blame everything except themselves. They'll blame their circumstances. They'll blame other people. They'll blame their past. They'll blame their genetics. But they won't look in the mirror and admit the truth. They're slaves to their own emotions, and they chose to stay that way. Because emotional control is uncomfortable. It requires discipline. It requires practice. It requires you to override your biological programming every single day. Most men aren't willing to do that. They'd rather be comfortable. They'd rather react naturally. They'd rather be authentic, even if authentic means weak. And that's fine. That's their choice. But it's also why they'll never build what you're going to build. Why they'll never have what you're going to have. Why they'll never become what you're going to become. Because you're different. You're reading this because something in you knows that you're capable of more, that you're meant for more, that you're tired of being controlled and you're ready to be in control. So here's my challenge to you. Pick one emotion that controls you the most. Maybe it's anger. Maybe it's fear. Maybe it's anxiety. Maybe it's frustration. Identify it. Name it. Decide that starting today, you're going to master it. The next time you feel that emotion rising, implement the pause technique. Just one breath, create that space between trigger and response. Then ask yourself, what would a man in control do right now? Not a reactive man, not an emotional man, a strategic, intelligent, in control man. And then do that thing. It's going to be hard the first time. Your body is going to scream at you to react like you always have. Your mind is going to give you 1,000 reasons why this time is different, why you should just let it out. Ignore all of that. Pause. Breathe. Choose your response. Do this once and you prove to yourself that it's possible. Do it twice and you start building a new pattern. Do it 10 times and you've weakened that emotion's control over you. Do it 100 times and you've mastered it. And once you've mastered one emotion, you can master all of them. This isn't motivational garbage. This is a practical system that works if you work it. But you have to decide right now, in this moment, do you want to be controlled or do you want to be in control? Do you want to be a slave to your feelings or do you want to be the master of your emotions? Do you want to live like an animal, reacting to every stimulus, or do you want to live like a man, choosing every response? Because you can't have it both ways. You can't be emotionally reactive and strategically successful. You can't be controlled by your feelings and in control of your life. You can't be a slave and a king. Choose, and if you choose control, if you choose mastery, if you choose to become the kind of man who feels everything but is controlled by nothing, then start today. Not tomorrow, not next week, not when you feel ready, today. Because every day you wait is another day you're giving your power away. Another day you're letting emotions make decisions that your logic should be making. Another day you're being controlled instead of being in control. The world doesn't reward emotional men, it rewards controlled men, strong men, strategic men, men who can think clearly under pressure and act decisively in chaos. You have the capacity to be that man. Every man does. But most men never develop that capacity. They stay comfortable, they stay reactive, they stay slaves. Don't be most men. Be the exception. Be the one who does the hard work. Be the one who masters himself before trying to master the world. Because here's the ultimate truth. You cannot control anything external until you control yourself internally. You can't control your business if you can't control your emotions. You can't control your relationships if you can't control your reactions. You can't control your future if you can't control your present emotional state. Everything starts with self-mastery. And self-mastery starts with emotional control. I learned this the hard way. Through failures, losses, and painful lessons. Through combat, through business, through life. But you don't have to learn it the hard way. You can learn it right now from what I've shared with you. You can implement these systems today. You can start building emotional control today. You can begin your transformation today. Or you can stay the same. You can keep reacting. You can keep being controlled. You can keep giving your power away. That's your choice. It's always been your choice. But understand this, 5 years from now, you'll either be grateful you started today or you'll wish you had. 5 years from now, you'll either be a man who controls his emotions and therefore controls his destiny, or you'll still be a slave wondering why life keeps happening to you instead of for you. The difference between those two futures is the decision you make right now. So what's it going to be? Are you going to keep reading motivational content and then going back to your same patterns, or are you actually going to implement what you learned here? Are you going to feel inspired for 20 minutes and then forget about this, or are you going to make this the day everything changed? Are you going to stay comfortable being controlled, or are you going to do the uncomfortable work of taking control? I can't make that decision for you. Nobody can. But I can tell you this, every man who's ever built something real, every man who's ever achieved something significant, every man who's ever commanded genuine respect, they all had to master this first. Emotional control isn't optional for success, it's foundational. So master your emotions, master yourself, and then go master your life. The world is waiting for men who are in control. Men who can think clearly, men who can act decisively, men who can lead without being swayed by every emotional wind. Be that man, starting right now.